In the early fall of 1944, every ounce of Allied armor available was thrown into the attack against Aachen. Realizing that its loss would open the way to the Rhine, the German garrison defended the city fanatically. Fighting was street by street, house by house. When the German commander finally surrendered on October 21st, historic Aachen had been reduced to a pile of smoking rubble. At the southern end of the Allied line, the French First Army was engaged in operations in the Vosges Mountains, aimed at breaking into the Rhine Valley. In the area of Belfort, the U.S. 7th Army was trying to close an escape corridor still open to enemy troops fleeing into Germany. The M7 Priest self-propelled gun was widely and effectively used. The M7 was typical of the American genius for marrying mainstay off-the-shelf chassis and weapons for both high production and high utility. It put the standard American field piece, the 105mm gun, onto a Sherman chassis and into the middle of even the most mobile battles as a troop supporter and armor buster. From the Canadian and British line in the north to the French in the south, the Allies were either assaulting the Siegfried Line defenses or edging ever closer to those powerful fortifications. In Holland, fighting in the cold and rain, the newly formed U.S. 9th Army under General William Simpson, along with the British 2nd, was engaged in bloody village-by-village combat against an enemy determined to hold the Netherlands line. At the same time, east of Aachen, American clearing operations were underway in the Hürtgen Forest. There, GIs of the First Army paid the price for fighting in country that was inaccessible to armor. On November 3rd, General George Patton launched a major offensive toward the Saar. A bridgehead was established over the Moselle River north of Metz, and the city was placed under siege. On November 16th, the U.S. 1st and 9th Armies resumed their offensive toward the Rhine. Fighting was intense. November rains, the worst in years, flooded the rivers and streams. Roads became impassable. Mechanized equipment bogged down. Gradually, due to the worsening weather and increasing enemy resistance, the Allied advance into Germany slowed, and in some places, stopped completely. But General Eisenhower was determined to reach the west bank of the Rhine before the onset of winter. He was not to be denied. At 6:30 p.m. on November 19, 1944, a unit of the French First Army advancing near the Swiss border broke into the plain and sighted their target at a place called Rosenau. Allied armor was at last poised to move across the Rhine. As the final battle for Germany loomed, the M26 Pershing heavy tank was just beginning to come into the line. The Pershing's 90mm tank-busting gun could out-hit and outreach most of the deadly German Tigers. The American troops continued pressing eastward through the murderous tangle of the Hürtgen Forest. It became the scene of some of the bloodiest fighting of the European War. Before the forest was cleared, 24,000 Americans had died. Why had Hitler defended Aachen with a ferocity so far beyond its worth? And why had the Germans resisted so maniacally in the Hürtgen Forest? In fact, it was to buy time for a remarkable build-up to the east. In an area known as the Schnee-Eifel, 3 panzer armies were being assembled in secret. Although Eisenhower's intelligence had assured him that the Germans were too weak to mount a serious offensive, Hitler had quietly gathered an armored juggernaut. Late on the afternoon of December 15, 1944, the last of his tanks rolled into position. At 05:30 on December 16th, the German barrage began. Hitler's assault infantry emerged from the morning mist. His armor moved forward. In the first hours, combat communications crackled. Penetrations, some deep, were reported all along the American line. The 5th Panzer Army of Baron Hasso von Manteuffel struck the newly arrived U.S. 106th Division at Saint-Vith. Further south, the American 28th on the west bank of the Our River was hard hit. The German assault was staggering. In many places, the heavily outnumbered Americans fell back in dismay. Hitler's battle plan was deceptively simple. In the north, General Sepp Dietrich's 6th SS Panzer Army was to take Monschau, cross the Meuse River, capture Liège and its valuable supplies, then drive for Antwerp, the Allies' chief port. At the center of the line, Manteuffel's 5th Army would capture the key road centers of Saint-Vith and Bastogne, cross the Meuse between Dinant and Namur, and push on to Brussels. In the south, General Erich Brandenberger's 7th Army was to provide flank protection for the entire operation. By midday, heavy fighting had erupted all along the Ardennes front. At Monschau in the north, the U.S. 2nd Division fought side by side with the U.S. 99th as they struggled to hold the line against the rampaging German 6th SS Panzer Army. Further south, the German 7th Army battered the U.S. 4th and 28th Divisions. As the first day of battle drew to a close, and the confused, outnumbered GIs continued to give ground, Wehrmacht commander Gerd von Rundstedt assured a jubilant Hitler that a great German victory was at hand.